Okay, Catherine, can we start?
Yes, it's recording.
Thank you. Okay, happy Tuesday to all, and welcome to the 2023 Organic Transitions webinar. We will start with our non-discrimination statement.
In accordance with federal civil rights law and U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA civil rights regulations and policies, the USDA, its agencies, offices, and employees, and institutions participating in or administering USDA programs are prohibited from discriminating based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, gender identity, including gender expression, sexual orientation, disability, age, marital status, family, parental status, income derived from a public assistance program, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity in any program or activity conducted or funded by USDA. Not all bases apply to all programs. Remedies and complaint filing deadlines vary by program or incidents. This slide contains contact information for individuals with disabilities to request reasonable accommodations. Language access services will be provided to limited English proficient individuals upon request, and anyone wishing to file a complaint can utilize the phone number, fax number, or postal mailing address that is listed on this slide.
Thank you, Catherine. This is our NIFA Organic Programs team. So when you have a question, contact any of us, and we will briefly introduce ourselves. I am Matthew, or just Matt Gawaggio. I'm a National Science Liaison in the Division of Plant Systems Production.
Hi, I'm Steve Smith, National Program Leader for Animal Production Systems.
And my name is Catherine Bonnard. I'm a program specialist in the Plant Production Division.
Okay, the main goal of this webinar is to answer questions that you may have. But before we get there, we would like to provide a quick overview of NIFA, an overview of this program, the request for applications details, the RFA. We will use that abbreviation a lot, RFA, that is request for application. We will go through the proposal evaluation process and then provide additional information to help you put together your application. So the NIFA overview, the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, NIFA, is the extramural science funding agency within USDA's research, education, and economics mission area. NIFA invests in and supports initiatives that ensure the long-term viability of agriculture. NIFA provides funding and strategic leadership for programs that ensure groundbreaking discoveries in agriculture-related sciences and technologies reach the people who can put them into practice. I know we are here today talking about the organic program, mainly the organic transition, but I just wanted to let you know that NIFA is more than just organic agriculture. We support a broad range of topics and programs, and they are all listed there. You all will have a copy of this presentation, so you can go through this and see every single topic that we cover with our grant programs. For this program overview, the Organic Transitions Program, and we will use ORG as the abbreviation for that. The ORG program seeks to solve critical organic agriculture issues, priorities, or problems through the integration of research, education, and extension activities. The key thing here is through the integration of research, education, and extension activities. The purpose of this program is to fund high priority integrated projects that will enhance the competitiveness of organic livestock and crop producers, as well as those who are adopting organic practices. And as we will go through this whole presentation, what we are showing you is directly from the RFA. And this information here, you can find it on page 3 of the RFA. So please, the RFA should be your main guide as you put together your application. For 2023, this program will offer 4 priority areas. Those are all listed on page 7 and 8 of the RFA. I'm not going to read through all of them. There's all the details in the RFA, but I'm just going to present the highlights of each of those priorities. Priority 1 will be looking for proposals to document and understand the effects of organic practices. So key thing, we want to understand the effect of organic practices on things like soil fertility, soil health, greenhouse gas emission, biodiversity. We also want to understand the impact of organic production on weed, pest, and disease dynamics. Priority 2 is to develop improved technologies, methods, models, and metrics to document and describe those ecosystem services of organic agriculture. Priority 3 is to develop cultural practices and other allowable alternatives to substances recommended for removal from the National Organic Program's National List of Allowed and Prohibited Substances. And finally, this is the big one, we are looking for projects to overcome barriers to organic transition. So any topic that is preventing people from engaging in organic agriculture will fit easily in that priority. Now, on page 8 and 9 of the RFA, you have other program requirements. And here are some. Organic system fieldwork must be done on certified organic land and or facilities. However, and as appropriate to project objectives, comparisons can include land or facilities in transition to organic certification. And some case, very special cases, we can also allow land that is not managed organically. If a land or facility in transition are to be used, we want to see a documentation from a certified agent that a transition plan is in progress. And for this program, a land is not considered organic unless it has received USDA certification. So even if you have managed everything according to USDA standard and you do not have the certification, therefore your facility will not be considered organic. And use of conventional practices or production technologies for comparison purposes may be allowed. So so the use of conventional practices or technology for comparison purposes or proof of concept may be allowed. However, you have to avoid cross-contamination with the organic program site. And proposal with a significant overlap in objective and scope cannot be submitted to simultaneously to both programs. This program, Organic Transition, or the ORAI program, or any other NIFA program. Now, about eligibility, you may be asking, can I submit to this program? And on page 13 of the RFA, you have the details. This program has a very narrow eligibility. So only universities and colleges can submit directly to this program. And that was set by Congress, not by NIFA. But an award recipient may subcontract to organizations not eligible. So if you are not eligible, you can work with a college and a university and be a subcontractor to them. Now, also, we know some programs offer limitation on the number of proposals that can be submitted by institutions or individuals. This program does not limit the number of proposals from any eligible institution. There is no limit on the number of proposals that an individual as a project director or a co-project director can submit. There is also, in fact, no limit on the number of awards that can go to an institution. However, we strongly discourage submitting duplicate or overlapping application within the same fiscal year to any of those two programs. In fact, if we see those duplicate applications, they will all be disqualified. Now, what type of grant and project do we allow in this program, Steve?
Thank you, Matt. As Matt pointed out, we've got different project types and grant types within Organic Transitions. We offer or invite integrated projects, research, education, and extension projects, but all of these will be considered standard grants. Now, notice the asterisk. This is an integrated program, so we do invite integrated projects. However, in Organic Transitions, we can, with sufficient justification, and it has to be rather compelling, accept also single function projects. And we'll talk about all of this in a little more detail. And in Organic Transitions, we offer integrated project proposals from 1 to 4 years, standard grants up to $1 million as a maximum award size. Now, what do we mean by integrated projects? These are projects that must include research and at least one of the other two components, education or extension. It can include research and education, research and extension, or it can include all three, but they must be truly integrated and not just standalone cars on the train where one is completed and the next gets added and the next gets added. There should be evidence, compelling evidence, that extension, for instance, is a full participant through the development of and as well as the execution and ultimately the dissemination of information after the project is completed and during the course of the project. Now, you heard me mention just a moment ago the possibility for single function projects that can be done within this program, but there really needs to be a compelling justification for that, not just, gosh, I'm not interested in education and extension, and I want to do a research only. There needs to be a far more compelling reason than that, but they will be considered and they can be submitted.
Okay, thanks, Steve. And we also hear from our applicants all the time saying you offer 2 organic programs. This one, the Organic Transitions, and ORAI. What is the difference between those 2 programs? How do I know where I can submit my application? And the answer is we try to keep those programs as separate as possible, but we do also recognize that there should be some area of overlap. So if you are working on a project with the main goal of improving the efficiency of crop or animal production systems, or the goal is improving the profitability or the competitiveness of the US organic industry, you can easily make the case that, yes, your project can fit in either of those two programs. However, if you are focusing mainly on studies that are on operating organic systems, we think that ORAI will be the best. That is the program where we allow on-farm studies, educational tools development, post-harvest, seed and breeding, integrated pest management. We also offer a unique opportunity for curriculum development, for conferences and planning grants. This program, the Organic Transition, on the other hand, focuses more on ecosystem services of organic agriculture, improving water quality, soil health, pollinators' health, biodiversity, greenhouse gases, carbon sequestration. We have priorities on tools and model development. And a big component of the organic transition, as you will expect, is finding ways to address barriers to organic transition. So any research that will help producers engage in organic agriculture will fit in the organic transitions. This is also where we address the priorities of the national organic programs, the NOP, like antibiotics alternatives, like finding alternative to methionine for poultry production. So please take a look at the RFAs of those two programs and you will see more details on the fit of your research program.
Thank you, Matt. Now, the RFA is pretty clear on what are allowable expenses, and there's certainly links to our uniform guidance that outlines what those allowable expenses are. But I want to draw your attention to a few things that are truly not allowable, that you can't use organic transitions funds to support. You can't use it to buy land. You can't use it to buy farm equipment. You can't use it for construction or renovation, no concrete and steel. You can have international collaborators, but the international activities as standalone are not allowable. So for instance, if you have a project where you have an international collaborator that offers guidance or will participate in the project in any number of ways as a full participant, conduct research that will have direct benefit to the US, that's fine. But what we can't do is have you engage an international partner where the primary beneficiary is that international partnership. And in some extremes, we've had applications come in to try to support research on a crop that doesn't even exist in the US, and that's absolutely not allowed and will not gain any traction. The last item that I would draw your attention to is not allowable is direct payments to producers. Now, by this, I mean, direct assistance was a term I used, but I mean payments, like payments that like you might find through some of the support programs through the Farm Service Agency, or the support provided by NRCS for organic transition. We don't do that within this program, though many agencies within USDA will provide that kind of support. It's just not found here. Cost sharing is another question that comes up commonly. Yes, there is a federal requirement that funds be matched dollar for dollar. However, we can waive that matching requirement for a couple of reasons. The first is the result of a project, while of particular benefit to a specific agricultural commodity, are likely to be applicable to agricultural commodities generally. The one that most commonly fits the organic programs, though, is the second one. and that is that the project involves a minor commodity. The project deals with scientifically important research, and the grant recipient is unable to satisfy the matching funds requirement. And why I draw your attention to that one is, even though we're very proud of the growth of the organic industry, we're still small compared to conventional. And so in almost every case, an organic product would be considered a minor commodity and could qualify under this exemption. Now, you do have to ask for that waiver. So be sure it's clear in your narrative that you are requesting it, and that so it's just not ignored. But I would certainly encourage you, if you need it, to do request it and cite the reasons that are shown on this slide. But keep in mind, either way, whether you have the matching funds or do not, it will not be considered a factor when evaluating your project.
Okay, now let's move to some of the application details. Catherine.
Yes, so the RFA is available online, and you can click that link to access this. The slides for this presentation will be housed on the event page where you went to register, so it'll be easy to access all of these links. There will also, you can also access the OREI and ORG program synopsis. It's a comparison of the two programs, as well as the frequently asked questions page regarding OREI and ORG programs. The application deadline is 5 p.m. Eastern Time, April 27th, 2023, and all applications should be submitted through grants.gov. The total funding available in fiscal year 2023 is $7.5 million. That's the funding available to states. The program code is 112.E. The maximum funding per award is up to $1 million. There are no restrictions per institution or awards per institution. And the RFA pages 15 through 19 outline the key documents that you will need for your application, which would be your project summary, also known as an abstract, your project narrative, the bibliography or reference list, your data management plan, project timeline, the budget and budget narrative, and there are other documents that can be included, and you just see the NIFA grants application guide for those. So the project narrative has a 21-page limit, and this is strictly enforced. We encourage you to use single or 1.5 spacing for your font at 12-point Times New Roman. And this includes all the text and figures, and the tables can be single spaced as well. Applications that exceed this page limitation will be returned without review. And for those submitting resubmissions, you have up to a 3-page limit that does not count against your 21 pages in your narrative to respond to previous review comments. And we also encourage you to put in the proposal number in that response, so we're able to link those documents. And then
another piece we get a number of questions about, and it's in response. And in this case, we are responding to a federal mandate that federally funded research be the data from those be put in the public domain in perpetuity. And not sure quite how we're going to do it in perpetuity, because if technology changes as time passes, but we're going to make every sincere attempt to make that that happen. And as a result, we require a data management plan. We give you up to 2 pages to describe your data management plan, again, not counting against the overall page limit of the narrative. But in those 2 pages, you've got to provide detailed business and management plans, including the expected data type, the data format, how you plan to store and preserve the data, how you plan to share it, how you're going to protect it, and how you're going to grant public access, as well as the roles and responsibility of your team as it relates to this data management. Now, these are just 5 bullet points. far more detail is in the document that's referenced here. So please do take the opportunity to read that in its entirety so that you come up with a really solid data management plan.
NIFA only accepts electronic submission of applications. And then NIFA grants application guide is available if you click on that link. And then application documents must be in portable document format, also known as PDF, to be accepted by NIFA. And this includes your narrative and budget justifications. And just for your information, grants.gov will allow other formats to be submitted like Word or Excel, but then NIFA does not accept those. And please do not use third-party PDF builders.
Okay, now let's move to the evaluation process of the application that are submitted to this program. So this is, you will find this on page 20 of the RFA. Before we even close the application due date, or we set up a panel that is a team of experts that are recruited throughout the country based on their area of expertise to review the proposals. And each proposal is assigned to at least 3 of those experts based on the topic of the research of the proposal. Each of those 3 reviewers will provide a written review, individual review of each of those proposals, focusing on the strengths and the weaknesses of the proposal. They will then submit those individual reviews to our system. After all that, we will convene a panel where all the reviewers will be together in a meeting. And the individual reviews will then be used during that panel to initiate a discussion on each of the proposals submitted to the program. At the end of that whole discussion of the panel, each proposal will be given based on a consensus of the entire panel. Each proposal will be given a final rating and ranking. And again, that will be based on all proposals submitted to the program. So really, your application is competing with every other proposal submitted to the program. And I usually tell people that if you just follow the guideline and check all the boxes, it is not a guarantee that you will get funding from the program, because it's not like an exam where there's a passing grade. This is a competition where only the best are awarded. So this is the evaluation process. We also try to be fair to all of our applicants by telling them exactly what criteria will be used for evaluating their proposal. And those evaluation criteria are on page 21 of the RFA. There are mainly 2 key criteria. The first is the technical merits, which is, like Steve was saying, the degree of integration of research, education, and extension. We don't want just to see 3 pieces hanging there. We want to see all those pieces, whether you use 2 or 3, fully integrated. We want also to see how well that proposal is addressing the priorities of the program for this year. We want to look at the methodology, and we want to see if the project would be successful in completing all the work within the time that is allowed. We want to see the quality of the monitoring, the data management, and the evaluation plan. And we want to make sure that all people or institutions involved are fully qualified to do the research. The second big criteria is the proposal relevance to the organic transition's purpose. We want you to clearly justify the problem that you are trying to address. We want to make sure that you are using appropriate disciplinary or expertise. We want to see if you are including stakeholders and end users in that research, not just at the end, but at all phases of the planning and execution of the research. We want to assess the probability that the project will be successful. And finally, we want to make sure that your research is filling a knowledge gap for the organic industry. We also get a lot of questions about the timeline. When will I hear back from you? So usually after you submit your proposal, it takes us about 1 to 2 months to about 1 to 2 months after we release our request for applications until the application due date. When we close the application due date, then we have another 2 to 3 months for our peer review panel to do their job and to make funding recommendations. If you are lucky to have a project that is recommended for funding, then it will take us another 1 to 2 months to work on that award and finalize the agreement. So on average, this program will take about 3 to 5 months from the due date to an award being made to an institution. We will keep you all updated as soon as possible, but in the meantime, we appreciate your patience. So these are just some of the additional information. Some of the applicants ask us, yes, I want to see the type of project that is funded through this program, just to have an idea on whether I should compete or not. You can go in the current research information system, the CRIS system, or you can just use the link at the bottom of this page here. If you click on that link, it will give you all the projects that have been funded through this organic transitions program. We also have some useful links here for you. If you want to see some of the upcoming deadline meetings and webinars at NIFA, click on the first link. If you are interested in knowing what RFAs are in the pipeline to be released, you can click on the second link here. And again, you will have access to this PowerPoint file. Finally, these are some of the resources that may be useful to you as you work on putting together your application. I'm just going to stress the very last one, NIFA Organic Programs. That is our program webpage. If you go there, it will give you answer many of your questions on this organic transitions program. With that, again, this is our team. Contact us whenever you have an opportunity. You have our email and you have our cell phone. So please drop off a quick message before you go too far in developing your proposal. With this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we will begin answering your questions from the Q&A box.
Okay.
So, Catherine.
Yep. I've got the questions pulled up. So the first one is, can you provide an example of types of barriers to organic transition?
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I can offer some of the one. Well, the first one I'll offer is almost universal and commonly talked about, and probably one that you've already thought of. The idea of having 3 years of transition before there's any economic return, and sometimes there is a production slump that is associated with the transition, and so you've got less to sell, but at conventional prices, and don't get the premium for organic production. That's a very common barrier. I will offer an animal systems barrier, and then let Matt tell you everything that I've missed. But for animal systems, it's even more challenging because you have to have so much in place all at once. And in addition to having that 3 years before you get paid for organic production, you have to not just be transitioning your animals and your land, your facilities, but also you have to secure feedstuffs that are certified. You have to change your medical practices, your veterinary practices. You have to secure identity preserved slaughter facilities. If it's milk and eggs, that's not required, but for other livestock it is. Then you have to have the wholesale distribution that will again identity preserve that, and it all has to be arranged up front. So for livestock producers, it's a real challenge to do this transition. So I think that serves as a huge example. But Matt, fill in the gaps.
Yes, Steve, and that priority was actually we put it in the RFA because it was the one that will pretty much catch most of the applicants.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just say you go out, you hear a farmer say, I want to engage in organic production, but I don't know how I will deal with weed problems. That's a barrier there.
Good problem.
I want to engage in organic apple production, but how do I do with fire blight? I can't even apply antibiotics anymore. I want to do poultry, but methionine is not allowed or will be removed from the list.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, I want to produce potatoes. There's a lot of problem with nematodes in the soil. How do I deal with that? So all those are barriers to organic transition. And if you can pick any of those things that are preventing farmers from engaging in organic systems, then it will be a good fit for the program. So let's put it this way. You are actually solving a problem that is a big issue for farmers and preventing them from getting in organic.
Right, thank you. So where would you expect relevant body of knowledge to be described in the project narrative?
Okay, I think that would be really, most people will put that in the introduction, because that is where you are trying to educate the reviewer. You are telling them, this is the problem. This is what has been done by other researchers to solve this. Yet we have not yet solved the problem. These are some of the preliminary data that we have generated. Yet the problem still need additional research. So that will be in the introduction, where you really basically convince the reviewer that the research that you are proposing is important, that other people have thought about it, that farmers think it is important, and that you want to solve. So I will put that in the introduction. And after that, maybe just follow with your hypothesis or the objective of your research. So it's a good place to educate that person who is going to review your proposal and make them buy that idea.
And the next question is, can we propose to create a new course related to organic agriculture with the ORG program?
Steve?
I would recommend the Organic Agriculture Research and Extension Initiative for this, because there is a call out in that RFA for curriculum development that is not included in organic transitions.
Good answer. Right. The cost to acquire the apparatus for greenhouse gas emission is nearly $100,000. Can this be budgeted in the overall ORG budget? Is this too much?
Can you repeat that question?
The cost to acquire the apparatus for greenhouse gas emission is nearly $100,000. Can this be budgeted in the overall ORG budget? Is this too much?
It is, if you can, if it would be considered, where I made exclusions for buildings and farm equipment. This would be considered specialized equipment, so it is allowable. Now, the question is, can you make a compelling case for it in a narrative in a, where it's a 10th of your budget? I would think you probably could, but that would be the only obstacle. It is an allowable expense because it's so project specific and so specialized. It would, it wouldn't fit that exclusion for concrete and steel, or, you're not talking about a new HVAC system. You're talking about a very specialized piece of equipment that I think would be allowable. Now, our next comment, Dr. Xu, your question, you're addressing specifics of your project and the resubmission of your project. I would recommend, rather than we talk about it in this open forum, would you please send an email to Matt and me, and we will set up a time and talk to you very specifically one-on-one about your questions regarding your resubmission. Is that okay?
Okay. When could be a tentative start date of a successful proposal?
This is one-year money program, and which means nothing to you, but means everything to us. Money has to be obligated by the end of the fiscal year in which it's appropriated, or it reverts back to the Treasury and it's gone. And it's not like recycled back to organic transitions, it's gone. So the latest start date has to precede the end of September. And in order to build in a bit of a safety factor, we will recommend a start date no later than September 1st. And if you first look at that and say, well, gosh, I can't possibly be ready by then. As long as you're not talking about a start date closer to the 1st of September the following year, don't worry about that so much, because we can, the money has to be obligated by then. But if you get a delayed start, we can discuss a no-cost extension at the back end of the project. So I wouldn't consider that a major concern.
Can we include stipend for farmers who serve on the advisory committees?
The answer is yes, and we actually encourage applicants to do that. When they are working with farmers, please treat them well. If you are using their farm, you can also pay them for, compensate them for the use of that facility.
And then the RFA mentions projects must be 2 to 4 years. I think Steve mentioned 1 to 4. Please confirm.
I apologize if I misspoke. It would probably, even though we may entertain one that comes in with a 12-month duration, it would be very unlikely that you could craft a project, a compelling project of the scale and scope needed for this this award program that would have a duration of less than 2 years, and typically 3 and 4 years are far more common.
While payments cannot be made directly to producers, do costs such as seed supplies for pollinator plants and subcontractors to plant those qualify?
Absolutely, yes.
Mhm.
And we, again, like I said before, if you are using farmers, you are using producers, we want you to compensate them. We want you to pay them for their service. So the answer is yes. And those projects usually even pan out very well in our program.
And if I've created any confusion with that statement, when I talk about direct payments to farmers, I'm talking about, subsidy type payments, payments like NRCS does for organic transitions, payments that come through Farm Service Agency. That's just the producers enroll in a program that provides them compensation. we don't support that, but certainly collaborating producers can be compensated.
This question is asking whether producing sustainable organic feed for animals is a good fit for the program.
I would say yes, even to the extent that I would point out that we have funded projects that are doing just that. So yes.
And with the caveat that this is mainly a research program. You can add other component, but it is a research
Oh,
program.
yes.
Just putting
Nope.
something to produce an organic crop without trying to solve a research question will not qualify.
Good clarification. I was talking about, like developing feedstuffs that would be appropriate for organic production of livestock. That
As a
would be
topic,
great.
yes. Agree with you, Steve.
So how can we incorporate education in the ORG program if creating a new course is not allowed? Would hands-on activities for students be considered education?
Again, I would encourage you to read carefully the Organic Agricultural Research and Extension Initiatives, RFA, because it's specifically invited there. So if you were to submit it to this program, you would very likely be viewed by the panelists as, oh, they submitted to the wrong program, and find yourself facing a challenge.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't have to have a full-fledged curriculum development. It could be a module that you are developing, a single class that you are developing for organic agriculture. That could be a component of your project, but not a standalone curriculum.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm more fully understanding the question. And forgive me if I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about a standalone curriculum development project. In the integrated, we're talking about integrated projects all through this discussion, requiring either an extension component or an education component or both in addition to the research. So if that's the piece you're talking about, then by all means, developing materials that could be used in coursework would be absolutely appropriate and welcome. But not as a stand. Well, even if it were sufficiently justified, we could probably put it in as a standalone. But that would be really challenging, particularly when we're deliberately inviting it with the ORI program. So again, forgive me if I misunderstood the question, because you may have only be talking about the education component that makes your integrated project. So yes, that would be welcome.
So can we include the cost of organic certification of growers' farms in the budget?
I think the answer would be yes, but the question that the review panel will ask you is, does your research require you to use that entire farm? Why put the cost of certifying a whole farm in a project like this if you're only going to be using a small piece? But again, it all depends on how you are justifying it in your budget narrative.
And just one word of caution, it's not likely, but if they are being compensated through like NRCS's program, we can't double dip. We have to have some fairly strict, rigid safeguards in place. So if they're accepting that compensation, you can't double compensate them for the same activity.
Could you please confirm the application due date for ORG 2023? Is it April 27th or the 21st?
Catherine, go ahead.
It is
for
the
that one.
27th. Yes. And the next question, can honorarium be paid to farmers for allowing sample collection?
And again, yes, if they are doing the work, they should be paying. They should be able to be paid for it.
That looks like our last question. Should the proposal include all the three components, research, education, and outreach, or any of the two is enough?
It's required that you have two, research plus education, research plus extension, but you can have all three. There's nothing to prohibit that.
No, I think
Okay.
those are all the questions.
Looks like no other question, Catherine.
No,
Okay. We have covered everything. So thank you again for attending our webinar. This is being recorded, will be posted, and the PowerPoint presentation will also be posted. So we look forward to seeing your proposal in the program this year, and we wish you good luck in your proposal. So with that, thank you again, and hope to see you. Bye-bye.